Hello and welcome to another MoneyWise Wednesday.
Hello.
I'm Andre,
And I'm Kelly.
and we are here with a special bonus episode to talk to you a little bit about fraud and scams.
Ugh, I hate that we have to talk about this.
Me too. It's the world we live in, unfortunately, but we got to talk about it.
We do. We've had a lot of members who have been on guard and have done a wonderful job of recognizing just some things going on in the world. And then I have some friends who, they don't bank with us, but they have their own things that they're experiencing. And they'll text me sometimes and be like, is this legit? Or, and what do I do? And it's sad. It's on the rise. And so that's why we really felt like we wanted to talk about this today. And
for sure. Yeah. I get those texts from my mom almost daily. Like, is this real? Is this a scam? And actually, sometimes it is, and sometimes it isn't. Sometimes I'm like, yeah, that sounds legit. But if you have questions, we'll talk about this later.
Yeah.
But if you have questions, do your research. So we do want to talk about scams today. We want to talk about fraud. We're going to talk about all kinds of different types of fraud, but let's go through kind of what our agenda is today.
Okay.
We're going to talk about some common fraud and scams. We're not going to be able to get to everything, but we'll go through some of the common ones that we're seeing in the financial industry. We're going to talk about some red flags and warning signs that you should be looking out for, some prevention strategies, and steps to take if you or someone you know has been scammed or believe you're being scammed. But first, I kind of want to start with an icebreaker and ask, have you, Kelly, ever been scammed?
I have.
Really?
I have. And it's nothing that I did wrong. Like I must have done something wrong. I must have dropped my guard somehow.
Yeah.
But when Tim and I were newly married, I can't remember if we had our son or not yet. So within the first, 3 to 5 years of marriage, we actually had tax fraud happen to us. So I was working for myself at the time, and I filed our taxes through a tax professional. So we were doing all of our stuff with him, and then he went to submit our return, and he emailed me and he's like, are you sure you guys haven't already done your return yet? I'm like, why would I have just spent hours with you like last week preparing all of this if we had already done it ourselves? He goes, I just wanted to check. And I was like, why? And he goes, I'm getting a response saying that you've already filed your return.
Yep.
And I'm like, you've got to be kidding me. So somebody stole at least my husband's, as head of household, my husband's identity or whatever, filed a return, got a refund. And I will tell you, it took over a year to resolve it. We had gotten our next year's return back before that year's return situation was solved. And it made me really kind of question, I'm not going to get like political here. We're not going to talk about our federal, system, but it really made me question, like, at least 2 years later, when I got the return back, it made me go, so they paid out twice. They paid out the scammer, and then they paid out me. How many other people is this happening to? And those are our tax dollars, right? That are, so it's just not, I guess when I think about fraud and I think about taxes, it's not just, the individual who's being frauded that's out the money. It's the entity in which they're working with or for that also that has to cover that, right? And there's not enough insurance in the world to cover stuff like this.
There's not. No.
So that was our story. And it was, so ever since, you know what that taught me? It taught me to file early every year.
Exactly. Yep. That was going to be my tip.
We have always filed early ever since. And I will never, like, my husband literally, like, within the last couple of days was like, okay, I got my form in. I'm like, all right, let's get to work.
Let's do it. We have a friend who was in that very same situation. However, somebody was, they were using her son's information. So they filed
like her dependent,
claiming her dependent. That's right. That got stuck. But they claimed her son like 3 years in a row. And she was like, okay, what is going on? And like you said, it takes about a year to clean that stuff up every time. And it was annoying. And she got to the point where she had to like freeze his social security number and do all that because whoever it was just kept doing it and nobody could find out who it was. So it was just it's very aggravating and very annoying.
Yeah, and it's very sad to me.
Yeah.
It's like preying on just the hardworking Americans, and hardworking citizens, and this stuff is happening. So it's just tough. But yeah, so I'm glad we're really talking about these things today.
Yeah.
I'm sure everyone has a story. What about you?
For sure. I have a very recent story. So within the past month, my PlayStation account was hacked. So I got
why gaming's bad, children. I'm just kidding. I'm joking. I'm kidding.
Okay, so I think it's been well documented that I'm kind of cheap. So I don't buy a whole bunch of games. Like a lot of stuff that I buy is either on sale, I get it at the store or whatever. So when I get a notification on my phone that somebody has purchased 4 games for like $60 a piece, I'm like, what is going on? Because
what has my son hacked into?
What is my son? Right. My first thought was, well, how did that happen? Well, he doesn't have any of my passwords, so that can't be what it is.
Smart kid, though.
He is a smart kid. So I contact PlayStation and I look onto my account and I see that there's a bunch of games that I would never play, like just things I would never even think about. And I'm like, what is happening? And so I get a new notification that says my password has been changed. Then I get another notification that says 2-factor authentication has been added to your account.
What?
So now I can no longer even
can't even access it.
You can't even access it. Nope. And so somebody
did they hack into your email then?
PlayStation had a hack. So they had a hack in general where people's information was just out there. And
but don't you have to get notifications in email to authenticate?
They had done it so fast that by the time I saw it, it was done.
Okay.
So I couldn't even like combat it.
Oh my gosh.
So we had to go through the process very recently of filing a dispute with my bank and getting those funds refunded and then contacting PlayStation, letting them know what was going on. There's no real person to talk to, of course.
Right.
So we had to go through that process. It was a nightmare. And it goes beyond that because I got refunded twice. And so PlayStation suspended my account. It was the whole thing.
Then you couldn't game. Oh my gosh.
I know, couldn't game. But
that's annoying.
It was annoying.
That all sounds really annoying.
It was so, and we just recently.
And this dude's over here living his best life, gaming on 4 new games that he just bought with your money, and you're one person that he probably did that to multiples.
Absolutely. So it was a nightmare, but that's kind of the reality when you get hacked or when people do these things, when they defraud you. The person that's being defrauded is the one left to pick up the pieces.
Yep, absolutely. So
and it's terrible.
But how could you have protected yourself from that? There's nothing you really could have done, right? Unless you said they had a hack.
So PlayStation had a
even
breach.
If you had updated your password regularly, which maybe you do, I don't know, but that's the only thing I can think of that you would.
One thing that could have helped me, which we'll talk about in a little bit, is if I already had 2-factor authentication on, they wouldn't be able to do that.
That's a good point, because sometimes you'll go to sign in for something for the first time and it will ask you, do you want to do that? And I think people are like, I don't even want to think about that right now. I just want to move on to finish doing what I'm doing. But that's a really good point already. I think that you're bringing out for everyone to hear is that is maybe a necessary step.
Exactly.
Or a very strong step to protect whatever it is that you're logging into or whatever.
There's a reason your employer has all these security measures on like the computers or devices that you use. It's for a reason, and it's probably a good idea for us to implement some of that stuff in our
own personal stuff.
Yeah, for sure. So let's talk about some different types of scams and frauds. Now, again, we're not going to be able to get into everything, and we're not going to go too much into the weeds into some of these things, but we do want to talk about the biggest one is probably phishing. So phishing with a PH, it's when somebody is trying to pretend to be somebody else in order to be a trusted institution in order to gain your personal information. Something we're going to talk about a lot in this episode is you never want to give your personal information to somebody you don't know. And you never want to give your personal information to somebody just because they say they're a trusted individual, right? So phishing can either be through email, text messages, or something like that. And their goal is to steal your passwords, steal your social security numbers, your banking details, anything they can use to gain access to your personal systems. A fact that I saw that when I was doing research on this is researchers have found that over $1 trillion is lost in scams every year.
Yeah, that doesn't surprise me.
$1 trillion.
That doesn't surprise me when I know how much there is just in the banking industry alone. Aside from tax fraud and all that other stuff. Like that number sounds small to me.
Really?
Just, I guess too, we're just kind of engulfed in it right now everywhere, and everywhere you go, that whole like 5 degrees of separation. I feel like if everyone has some sort of fraud experience and it feels like everyone has them more frequently now.
Right.
So like everyone likely has had fraud happen. It used to be like the story like when we taught these workshops 7 years ago, it was like everyone's had fraud at least once in their lifetime. It's like at least once every quarter.
Right, once a quarter.
It seems like how it's becoming now. Yeah.
I do want to back up a little bit because I do want to put a little bit of disclaimer out there. So one of the common misconceptions about scams and being scammed and things like that is that it usually happens to old people or dumb people.
Yeah.
Right. Well, how could you not know? How did you fall for it? That type of thing. Studies have shown that the most likely people to lose money based off a scam is from the ages of 25 to 35. Okay. Which was very interesting to me.
Do you think that's because they're more trusting of institutions or?
So the researchers didn't have an exact answer, but they think it's because they're more active online.
Yeah. So there's more opportunities to snatch their information because we're so digital now.
Right.
And they're more digital than any other generation.
Right.
That makes sense.
Yeah. But we hear, or I hear all the time that you think it's only old people because of dementia or cognitive decline.
Or just lack of experience with the technology as it's kind of evolved.
Which is true. Some of that is true. Yeah. However, the most likely person to get scammed and lose money is 25 to 35.
Yeah, very interesting.
So I say that to say nobody deserves to be scammed. We don't want to victim blame. We don't want to say, how could you? Right. We don't want to shame anybody. But it can happen to anybody. If it's happened to you, you shouldn't feel embarrassed, anything like that. Just we're here today to give you the tips to try to prevent it from happening again.
Exactly.
Yeah. So back to phishing. Phishing can happen in a bunch of different forms. So it can, like I said, email. So if you ever get an email from a company like Norton Antivirus or PayPal or Amazon saying that you owe them money or that they're about to charge you for something or that you've already been charged for a service that you didn't actually have, that's more than likely a phishing attempt.
Yeah. I've seen some of them. I feel like the ones that I've heard about are also, it's not random. Like it's a company you do business with regularly. Right. And that's the part where I think our guard is down usually because we're like, we're expecting maybe we did make a purchase with Amazon or maybe we did make a purchase at Walmart or whatever. And so you're like, oh yeah, I did make that. And maybe sometimes they even know more, like they know the dollar amount or they know what you bought because there's something that has allowed them, and maybe they've hacked into something that we don't know about that's not even on our side.
That's
right.
That's right.
And so that's the part that I think is so tricky and that makes us so trusting as humans to go, okay, yeah, I did make that purchase. I'm going to click on it.
Right.
Without really diving into the sender email address, looking at what the browser URL is going to go to if I click through, which we'll talk a little bit more about. And so it's real easy to just real quick. That's why they call it phishing because they caught you.
Exactly. One to that point, text-based scams, which is called smishing, by the way, it's SMS phishing. It's pretty much the same thing. However, it's specifically targeting your phones and text messages. So this can come in a bunch of different forms. One could be you get a notification for a package that maybe it says your package can't be delivered. Please follow this link and we will, check it out. They almost got me because we did a lot of ordering around Christmas time.
Of course.
And so we did have packages on the way. And one of them was actually an overseas package. And my text message said, hey, your international package can't be delivered. And I was like, oh, well, okay, that's concerning, right? And so, but I had to stop and think and be like, okay, let me actually go on the USPS website and see if this is true. And it turns out it wasn't.
I'm so glad you had the thought, the intuition to do some research.
But again, it's not because I'm not a smart person. Like if I didn't take that moment, that second, I would have been like, I would just click the link and thought it was something. But that's how they get you. That's how intelligent and smart these scammers are. And we often say we wish they would get a real job.
I know.
I mean, but it is what it is. Another example of smishing that I want to highlight is if you ever get a text from a supposed wrong number. So you get a text from somebody like, hey, Becky, I'll be late for the party tonight. I don't know if anybody ever gotten those before, but that is actually a form of smishing. So they want you to respond so that they can get you engrossed in some kind of conversation. And the longer they engross you in conversation, the more likely you are to fall for whatever scheme they have coming next. So usually it'll be an investment scam where they'll ask you to invest in something or invest in cryptocurrency or the stock market or something like that. You'll send money, but it'll actually be going to the scammers and not an investment. So that's kind of a way. There's a term for it. It's called pig butchering. I don't know why it's called that. I didn't go that deep into it, but that's what it's called when you get those wrong number texts and they try to get you in conversation. So be careful of that. The best thing you can do in that case is just not respond.
Yeah.
Just don't even worry about it.
Yeah. Again, not giving any information to someone that you don't know.
Exactly.
I think it's safe at this point to just assume that if you don't know the sender, it's a scammer. Just assume it's a scammer.
Assume it's a scammer.
And you can ask questions if you want to try to flush it out. But our advice is don't engage at all. Don't engage at all. Because if it's a legit, need for conversation, they would know how to reach you.
That's exactly right.
You would be expecting some sort of communication from that company.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. So we want to briefly hit cryptocurrency scams. So cryptocurrencies are becoming more prevalent. There's all kinds of different coins out there. And I just want to note here that no legitimate company at this point in time, 2025, is going to ask you to make a payment to them in the form of cryptocurrency. So you may have somebody encouraging you to make a payment to maybe PayPal or Amazon. I keep using those because those are kind of the big ones that the scammers like to use. They might ask you to make a payment to one of those companies in the form of cryptocurrency. You need to be really, really, really skeptical before sending any money in that form.
Yeah, that's good.
So we also have social media scams. And we would think this is for the younger audience, but it's actually not. The more likely to be hit by a social media scam is actually middle-aged. So social media scams have a bunch of different forms. So you may get a request for a contest. There may be a game that they're encouraging you to download that says they're going to pay you for playing the game. A lot of those are fraudulent. A lot of those are scams. They're trying to collect your personal information to do all kinds of stuff with. So be very, very careful about your activity on social media, who you're responding to. If you get a friend request from a friend that you already have, that's probably a sign that you're being scammed. Or if a friend messages you something like asking for money or asking something that's out of character, that's also a sign that they may have been hacked. And the scammer is trying to get your information that way. So be very careful. If you get one of those messages from a friend, contact that friend directly. If you're close with them like that, contact them via their phone or email or something like that, and ask if that was actually them. Right.
Yeah, that's good. Have you ever? Well, I think it happens a lot to all of us, but have you ever gone to click out of a social media ad? So you've clicked on an ad to go out, and then. Okay, let me use an example. So I love to shop at Bath and Body Works. Bath and Body Works. I like when they have their candle sales and their wallflower sales. And so I get ads frequently when they're doing sales for those things in social media. That's the only way that I know they're doing the sale, because for some reason they don't email me about the sale. Right. But maybe it's because I'm unsubscribed from emails. I don't know. Okay. But I also don't check my email regularly. Not that I'm scrolling social all the time, but they catch me more on social, because it's targeted and paid and all that. So I'm like, oh, she opened her phone. Let's send the ad now. Like that's how it works. It's weird. It's freaky weird. But when you go to that third party site, right, or you go to that vendor site through the ad click, you know how like it'll say log in, and then it'll ask you, do you want to log in using your Facebook account or your Instagram account login credentials? Someone told me I went to a conference within the last couple of years, and I remember hearing someone go, don't ever, ever, ever sign in using those I guess features. Like don't use your face, because now I think I could be wrong. I feel like most of that is for marketing purposes anyways. It's like, okay, now we're going to get all this other stuff to give us the other algorithms to be able to do more marketing to you. But fraud wise, I think that those are opening up other doors of concern and other opportunities for fraud to happen, because you do have other demographical type things assigned to your Gmail account or your Google account, whatever, or your Apple account or what have you. And so when you're using those account names or account features to sign in, they now have access to other things. If you just use a login name and password or an email address and password, they're only limited to allowing you access through that portal. I learned a lot through that. And I was like, that's a really good point. Like I just thought of it as a convenience factor. And of course that's how it's marketed. Like, and then all you have to do is the authentication in the future. If some companies don't even have authentication on their sites, but anyways, I just thought while you were talking about social media, I was thinking about that. Like that's a common way that I click through, and I do get asked that a lot. Like, do you want to sign in using that account versus your login and password? And again, it's easier to just sign in using my Google account because it's on my phone. But there's a benefit to logging in by using your email address and putting your password in the old-fashioned way.
A unique password.
It only takes 60 seconds to do it. Now, if you've forgotten your password, you got to reset. That's a whole other thing. But it's again a necessary step to protect you and your assets.
And it's inconvenient. It absolutely is inconvenient to have a unique password for every site. But that's kind of the benefit, just like you're saying. You don't want the hackers to get access to one thing, and now they can just test that password everywhere. And just get multiple things, right? And to that point, I'm glad you brought that up with the ads. There is a percentage of Facebook and other social media ads that are fraudulent. So Facebook is such a big company, and they get so many requests for ads and companies trying to get in the space. They can't vet everything perfectly. So you may get a Bed Bath and Beyond or whatever.
Bath and Body Works.
Bath and Body Works. I'm sorry.
Sorry, I put that in your head. Are they even a company anymore? I don't know.
I think they went under.
I think you're only digital now.
Oh, okay. So you may get an ad that is actually not really Bath and Body Works, and they're asking you to log in. And you log in, and now
thinking that I'm gonna get $2.95 wallflowers.
For sure.
Or I do place the order for them, and they never come, and then I have to figure out why.
Exactly. Yeah. So that is a thing that could happen. Also, if you ever get a message from Facebook or Instagram saying that your account is being suspended because you violated their terms of service or whatever, please log in here to dispute. Right. What they're doing is they're trying to get you to log in so that they now have your login and they can take over your account. So if you ever get those emails, do not click on those links in the email. Contact Instagram or Facebook or whatever it is directly.
And I think that happened to someone that I know in my family that for the longest time, he wasn't able to post anything to Marketplace and he couldn't figure out why. And I think that at one point prior to that in the past, he must have clicked on a message like that. And then somebody probably busted the fake account or whatever, or his account. And then he was kind of banned. Because they thought it was actually him doing it. And in his mind, he's thinking, I didn't do anything.
Exactly.
But he probably got something like that because I was like trying to help him figure it out. And he even was like trying to contact Facebook and like for, again, good luck reaching a human.
Good luck. Yeah.
And he's like, I don't know how to get out of this, you know?
Sure.
And I'm like, you might need to just create a second account. And
Yeah,
then
start
on that
from
account,
scratch.
just, say, this is my real account. But
Mhm.
then it's hard because most of this, like, you can only have one account per email address. It's like, so do you create a whole new email address so
Yeah.
that you can have another account?
Yeah,
It's just a mess.
it is a mess.
I think we're finding other reasons why social media might not be so great
Yes.
for our culture.
Exactly. The last one I kind of want, not last, it's second to last. So I do want to hit on charity and disaster fraud, which is absolutely terrible. So there are people who will take advantage of natural disasters and things that happen in the world.
We've seen a lot of that lately.
Yeah.
There's been a lot of weird natural disasters happening all over the country.
Exactly. And because we're good people and we have good hearts, we want to contribute to those efforts. However, there are people out there that will set up fake funds, fake accounts, fake causes, and have you donate money that's not actually going to where it should be going.
I have to pause for just a second because when you were talking about that, a podcast that I listened to, since some people might be listening to this on the podcast or the webinar, there is a podcast I listened to last year called Scamanda. And it's about a young lady who faked having cancer for multiple years.
Wow.
To scam people out of donating money to her. Like, she went to the lengths of like posting stuff after she had like chemo treatments and stuff.
Are you kidding?
No. So Hulu, I think, just picked up the story and it's launching on the 31st. Like, it is on my saved to watch.
I'm going to check that out.
Because I want to see more of what I heard about, because the podcast was done very well and in depth, covered very well. But it's like people who were interviewed on this documentary who there were friends of hers who like donated to her and her family. Like, she had children. Like, it's just wild. The links that people will go to for greed, for money.
Yeah, exactly.
And then, the giving, bleeding hearts of the world who want to help. And that's someone so close to you that
right.
But then
preying on people's goodwill is so terrible.
Yeah. And then so it makes me think about, people who have, I know that's an extreme example, but we've recently had hurricane things in our neck of the woods. We've also had, the flooding that came from that in the mountain region, the eastern mountain ranges.
Wildfires recently.
Wildfires on the West Coast. I mean, it's just, there's a lot of opportunity for the bad guys to swoop in. And so it's really good to kind of vet those charitable organizations and vet out, that person who's asking for help directly. What is their motivation? Why can't they go through that organization for support? Right. And again, if you don't know them, you always need to be very cautionary about where that money's going.
That's exactly right. Yeah, definitely. You want to do your research. Take just the extra few moments, however long it takes, to research who's asking, why they're asking, and why can't they access, like you said, other resources. And if you try to point them in the direction of other resources, how do they respond? Right? Do they respond with anger? Do they ask you to donate to them directly? Certain things should give you pause, and we'll talk about that in a little bit.
I like what you have on your last bullet point here for that one. I want you to say if you get credit for it, because this is your work, not mine. But
so it's okay to take a moment to verify. You're not a bad person for pausing before donating. Yeah. So it doesn't make you any less charitable to take a breath and say, does this make sense?
Yeah, I love that.
We do want to talk about credit and debit card fraud. We do see this a lot as well. So I didn't want to just focus on the digital fraud, because that is definitely a thing. There's also like physical debit and credit card fraud that can happen. So anytime your debit card is charged or your credit card is charged without your authorization, that is a fraudulent transaction. And we want to make sure that you're paying attention not only to your accounts, but paying attention to, your normal spending habits. There's different ways that this can happen. So there are skimming devices. Normally you'll see skimming devices at gas stations, but not only at gas stations. You can't have them on ATMs or anything like that. Anywhere, any place that you can slide a debit card or credit card, a skimming device can be found. And you want to explain what a skimming device is?
Oh yeah. So a skimming device is another. It's like a mobile scanner device that can fit within an existing scanner device. So instead of scanning, I don't know how the technology works exactly, but they're smaller and a little more micro-sized. So they blend right in with the equipment, and it looks just like it's a part of the machine. So you really wouldn't be able to know.
Right.
I've even seen like at gas stations where it'll say we have a skimming detection on this machine. I've even heard of some of those still being able to circumvent those identifiers. So like, I think a lot of companies put those on to give you peace of mind so that you'll buy your gas from them, or you'll make that purchase from them. So, but I would still be, very weary, like just be, leery of those.
Be cautious.
Be cautious.
Be cautious. So a lot of skimming devices you can actually remove, because whoever the fraudster, they're portable. They have to be portable because they have to be able to collect them later. So a lot of times you can just tug on the little, I look like a crazy person all the time.
I'm pulling on them. I'm looking at them.
I'm pulling and looking and doing all that stuff every time, because you never know.
Yeah.
They are very convincing.
Yeah.
When they insert or put those skimming devices on. Yeah. So just be vigilant.
If you can use tap, use tap. Tap is tap was the solution to
exactly.
That. I know that there's still other probably ways that people have come up with, whatever. Yeah. But that is definitely, if you're not, you don't have to insert the chip or do the scan. It's literally tap with that microchip. Exactly. So if that's another layer of caution, another layer of protection to help you. So if you have tap, use the tap feature. Sometimes tap doesn't work everywhere. You know how sometimes I've gone up there and I'm like, the whole tap machine, I'm like, it's telling me I can tap, but it's not reading my tap right now. But I will try it.
I love it when I do that for like 5 minutes, and then the teller is like, "Oh, our tap machine doesn't work." I'm like, "Well, you just watched me."
I know, right?
Wave my arms like an idiot for 2 minutes. Yeah, but yes, the tap is that's the whole point, was to combat fraud. The chip was supposed to do that too. Yeah. However, of course, the hackers' technology evolves. They've starting to figure out the chip. So tap to pay for now is kind of the best way to go. So kind of some of the warning signs, if you think your credit card or debit card has been hacked or compromised, is if you have some unexpected charges. That's kind of the most obvious thing. It seems obvious, but a lot of people, we're starting to learn, don't monitor their accounts.
Yeah, oh my goodness gracious.
People are not paying attention to what they're spending their money on.
This is something I talk to my son about a lot. I'm like, son, every day you need to be going through your app and just taking a look at your pending transactions. And what I'm finding, sadly, is that people discover it after it's too late.
That's right. Yeah.
To what do they call it? What do you call it?
To dispute it?
Yes, I'm sorry. Thank you.
Because you have 60 days? Something like that. Yep. We were hit up in the Atlanta airport, we think. One of the things you'll learn about this is it's really hard to determine when and where you've been compromised. We think it happened in the Atlanta airport. We were coming back from a trip, and there was a charge for 50 cents on our card. There's a little innocuous charge of 50 cents. And then later, we found all this out later, right? Later, there was a charge for $25. And then it was like $60. And it was like $100. And so what we think was happening is whoever got our card tested it. Right, at like a candy machine or whatever, something like that. And then when they found out it actually worked and we weren't paying attention, they started charging more things. So they ended up charging like $300.
Did you lose the card? Is that what happened?
No, we had it in our possession the whole time. That was kind of the weird thing. Yeah.
But you know what I've learned too? Some of those credit card scams, that there are some outfits that are making duplicate cards. So your card number could have been stolen months prior.
That's true.
And it just took a process for those ringleaders and all their little posse to seriously.
Yeah.
It's like a little gang of fraudsters.
It is.
To do that. I'm not sure if that's a common method anymore, but I know years back, that's what they were doing. They were creating duplicate cards. And again, I think that's where the chip and the tap or, all those extra protections were put into place. Not sure if that's still common these days, but it's something to certainly think about and know about. It's like, it could have been another way that they got it and then created another card for you, but
it could have been. Yeah. So we I did learn that a lot of times, just like you said, your card could have been compromised months ago.
Yeah.
And it's been
just
sold
been-
on the dark web or
Yeah.
whatever, and they're just now getting to charging you.
Yeah.
So we get questions a lot like, well, how did this happen? There's almost no way of us ever
Really
knowing.
that.
Yeah.
I think that we want to put our energy and our focus on how do we prevent it from happening again.
That's exactly right.
Like, yet let that desire to want to know what happened kind of fuel how do you protect it from happening again. And
Yep.
I think too that the struggle that's so exhausting for us as consumers is like, we think that we're doing the right thing and protecting ourselves by implementing this other step. And then you find out later there's just another scam that's come out that's kind of combated that one. So you're like, it's just this vicious cycle where you feel like you're just playing catch up. And sadly, that's just the way it is. They're innovative, they're smart, they're writing code that's breaking into things. And sadly, there's really no way to fully prevent everything.
No.
But the things that we work with sometimes, or that we see in our jobs, is some of it was preventable.
Sure.
Usually it's a trusting issue, or falling victim, sadly, to the phishing.
Sure.
The stuff we talked about early on in our session today.
Yeah, the biggest thing, the biggest takeaway probably is just paying attention.
Yeah. And I will say about credit cards and debit cards too, a lot of people are giving out their number. So like when they're talking with someone, and that's a big problem. Like you should not be giving your card number out to people. Right. And like, so, even like going back to charities, you still have the old fashioned, there are some people that are doing like telephone telethons, to call you like, hey, you want to support your local firefighters, and say, give me your credit card number today. No,
not over the phone.
Give me another way to support your organization that doesn't require me giving you my entire card number.
Yes, it's 2025. People should not be taking your card number.
Yeah. Now, there are instances where I know people will say, verify the last 6 of your card. But I'd still be careful doing that, because later there could be another element to that says, please verify the first 4 of your card, or the middle number of your card. People like, they do that. And then now they've pieced together your entire card number and your expiration date, and they know your zip code probably.
So that's actually called social engineering.
Yeah.
When they piece together information based on what seems like common questions.
Yeah.
It's called social engineering. So sometimes somebody will have you engage you in conversation, and it doesn't seem like you're being scammed, but they're actually asking questions that can kind of piece together a life story.
And that, I will tell you, those are the people who are fully taking over your identity, and they're opening accounts in your name, or, that sort of thing. Like they're getting enough information over time.
Yeah.
Or you've clicked on enough things that they've been targeting you with, that now they have enough to, to buy your taxes.
At that point, we're creeping into identity theft territory.
Absolutely. So just don't give your card number, especially the last 8 of your card. Those are extremely unique to your particular account number. Don't give it away. And if people are asking for it, you need to find another method in which you can pay for that thing that you're wanting to pay for.
That's right.
If they're trying to verify information, I'm sorry, that's not going to happen. And then you really need to be thinking about, if they are a legitimate business and that's the only method in which you can do business with them, you might want to consider maybe that you shouldn't be doing business with them, because they don't have security measures in place to protect you as a consumer. Exactly. And you deserve more than that. So maybe you need to consider a different product or service with another vendor.
Yep. I'm glad you brought that up, because I started writing down, if you give somebody else your PIN number on your debit card, that is not fraud. So, if you give somebody else your PIN number, let's say you send your child to the store to buy a snack, and you say, here, use my PIN, you can't then dispute that as fraud, because by giving them your PIN number, you've given them authorization to use that card.
Even if you've written it on a sticky note and it's stuck on your debit card that they stole out of your wallet.
Yep.
You had your PIN number written on your sticky note or the sleeve that holds that card. I can't tell you how many times I have heard this.
Yes.
And that's where it's like, it's easy for us to, want to go, what were you thinking?
Yeah.
But I mean, I get it. It's hard. Where are you going to store all of these passwords that you have to keep now?
Yes.
And I understand that is a very serious struggle, but you've got to find a way to have tools that you can keep that information in a safe place, whether it's written on a notebook somewhere and it's under lock and key, or whether you've got a password protection app on your phone or something like that.
Yeah, there are many password management apps that are available now. I know there's one on Apple. I know Google has one as well. But if technology isn't your thing, like Kelly just said, just having it under lock and key somewhere, you can store all your passwords.
And I will say that, for our elderly consumers that might be listening, or if you're a family member who is taken care of, or you help a family member, you're putting them in a very compromising position when asking them for all of that information.
Yeah.
However, we understand, but there are processes to follow to allow you access to take care of them in that manner and to do it the right way.
Right.
There are limited powers of attorney that you can get for that. Do it the right way, because if anything does ever happen, you don't want to look like you're liable, but two, you don't want to have to go through the legal process of disputing all of that stuff.
That's right.
And so if you are taking care of someone who's older or who has dementia or has Alzheimer's, and you don't have those legal documents done with an attorney, I would strongly advise you to get those things in place now, because it's only going to get worse.
Exactly.
And harder.
We get so many stories. Well, all this money is missing from grandma's account. Well, I'm the one who's taking care of the account. Well, you're not on the account.
Right.
I can't talk to you about any of this stuff.
You shouldn't be acting on behalf of someone else on their account.
Exactly.
Period. Yeah, that's just not cool. Not a good look. And you're going to immediately look suspicious if that's the case. And then if you are the consumer, you're the elderly person, and you're trusting members of your family to do certain things, consider that. Consider, who is doing that. I mean, this is elderly fraud is a whole nother topic that we could probably talk about. So I don't want to take up too much of our time, but there are some things that you can go, put into place to protect yourself, but just be really careful. Getting back to your point, don't just give that person your debit card with your PIN and tell them to go to the ATM. Right. Have them take you to your bank,
right,
so that you can do the business yourself. If you are unable to do so, then that's where a power of attorney probably needs to be there, because then they are liable for anything that is done wrong in your care. That's exactly right.
Yep. Yeah. So we want to get to the red flags and warning signs. We've talked about some of these already, so I'm not going to go too much into detail, but some of the communication red flags is if you get unsolicited contact from an unknown source. So you get contacted by somebody you don't know. We've talked about this. Be very, very, very cautious. We recommend not to reply at all. If you do find yourself replying, if it starts to sound suspicious, just cut off communication immediately. If you're being pressured to do something urgently or immediately, that is a big red flag that this is probably not legitimate. Nobody should be pressuring you to do something right now or within the hour or within the day or something like that. Just be very cautious if somebody is really pressuring you to do something quickly. If people are asking you to pay them in gift cards, this is something that comes up a lot. It's a big one. If somebody's asking you to make a payment with gift cards, that is not a legitimate business.
You know how we see those, at least how I've heard of these before. And I've talked to people who've been on the receiving end, like they're the consumer who fell victim to this. Somebody had hacked into, this is a recent example. Somebody had hacked into a gentleman's email. And then they created a spoof email account as if he were that person, but with one digit different so like one letter difference. So it still looked like he was, let's say, John Smith at gmail.com or whatever. Then they'll use that spoofed email to then email someone that they do know who is a legitimate person that they send emails to. And they go, hey, Bob, my phone's out of commission right now because I'm traveling with my daughter and can't access my account. Would you send, and sometimes it's gift cards. Can you mail me some gift cards while we're out of town?
Yeah.
And sadly, people are falling for this.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. All the time.
So you think that, oh, okay, that's John. And I can't call him because his phone's not working.
Right.
So, but that's John Smith. That's his email address. I get emails from him all the time. So yeah, man, I need to help him out. The first thing you should stop and do is go, let me call his phone just to make sure it's not working.
Just to make sure. Yeah.
Because had you called his phone that he said was out of commission and he answered, you can go, hey, did I just get an email from you saying that you are stranded in Arizona or whatever?
Right.
No, I don't know what you're talking about. Okay. Hello. That's an example. These are happening on the daily, the hour.
It's gotten so bad that most merchants have signs that say, hey, if you're talking to somebody on the phone right now.
Yes. I got a gift card for someone the other day and it was at the stand.
Yeah. It'll say, if you're talking to somebody on the phone right now and they're asking you to make a payment in gift cards, hang up and do not buy the gift card.
Yes.
So a lot of times the scammers will keep you on the phone to make sure you're following their instructions. Yeah. They'll tell you to keep it a secret. Don't tell anybody else what you're doing. And if they ask you questions, just tell them you're buying a gift card for your loved one or something like that.
And I've even heard some of them will take it a step further and go, and actually, if you go ahead and give me your bank account information, I'll go ahead and wire you, or I'll go ahead and deposit or transfer the money for the shipping.
Yeah.
So now they've gotten, again, this is that whole social engineering where they're now taking their one fraudulent thing with you and it's going into multiple layers.
Exactly, because they've already asked you for your personal information, so your name, address, phone number, all that stuff. So now if you don't comply, they can start threatening you.
Yeah.
And
this is what's going to happen to you if you don't. This is
what's going to happen. I have your address. So it gets scary. We weren't trying to get into all the scary stuff, but it can get scary.
Sorry. Leave it to me, the podcast crime junkie.
So yes, if somebody's asking you to make a payment with gift cards or wire transfers is another one, or cryptocurrency, it is probably not a legitimate business. Please stay away. If they're asking you for sensitive details like your PIN or your passwords, do not provide that information. That should be a red flag. And so there's also visual cues. So if you get an email from and the link doesn't seem to make sense, or it says Amazon, but it's spelled with, I don't know, an E instead of an A or something like that.
It's usually very subtle.
Yeah.
It's one digit. It's one letter or one number. That is a really big, that's probably where the majority of these things are happening from, because those are those phishing emails.
Right. It'll be an Amazon with 2 N's or something. Something that when you look past it real quickly, you wouldn't notice.
And they'll go even further. And when you click on the link, it goes to a vanity site that looks exactly like Amazon, but it's not. You got to double check the URL.
Exactly.
And then you can research with the company. The company will tell you what their URL should be.
That's right.
Or to have a security certificate. If it doesn't have a security certificate on it, it's not a legit.
That's right.
It's not a legit site.
If there's poor grammar or spelling mistakes in the correspondence, that's also something that should cause a red flag. And there's actually multiple reasons for that. One of the reasons is a lot of these scams come from overseas. This is not to stereotype anybody or anything, but a majority of the scams do come from West Africa and India.
Okay, other countries.
So
there's probably some broken English. So
right, English is not their first language. But there's also another theory that I thought was really interesting. So a lot of these scams will have broken English or misspelled words or things that don't make sense. And it's because they're vetting the people who are actually paying attention to that type of thing. So if you're more likely to overlook grammar mistakes or things like that, you're more likely to fall for the potential scam.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So that was another theory that I thought was really interesting. Yeah. So if you see that kind of thing, just pay attention. All right. That should be a red flag. If it's too good to be true, it probably is. Right. We've heard that since we were a kid, but it is true. If it's quick money, if they're offering you the chance of a lifetime, they say you won the lottery, but you never entered the lottery, it's probably a scam, right? And if you have unexpected charges or withdrawals, or if you get an alert about a purchase you didn't make, like my PlayStation story, luckily I have alerts on my account for a certain dollar amount. If it's spent, it tells me. So if I did not have that alert on my account, I probably wouldn't have known. Yeah. So because I figured it out really quickly, like that day, we were on the phone with the bank and contacting PlayStation. So, but setting up those alerts can really help you out. And if you get declined for transactions, even though you think you should have enough money, that should also be a red flag that maybe something weird is going on. Anything else you could think of? So let's talk about how to prevent some of this stuff. We've been over a little bit of this already, But you want to guard your personal information and make sure that you're not giving your information away to strangers, especially over the internet. But
yeah, and just because you have a great relationship with a company doesn't mean that you have a great relationship with that person who's on the phone right now.
That's exactly right.
Like,
yes.
Again, treat it's kind of like a cautious relationship. So you might trust, the company that you're spending your money with, or where your bank or financial institution. But again, that individual on the other side of the phone, you can't assume that they are truly representing what they say they are, and that they truly are the person with that company.
That's exactly right. There's a thing called spoofing. So you can spoof phone numbers. It's an available software, but you can call from somebody else's phone number.
Yeah.
So you may get a call from the bank saying that, hey, we detect suspicious activity on your account. Can you please give me your card number so we can verify? Well, what was wrong with that sentence? They asked you for your card number.
Yeah.
We should already have that information.
Yeah,
right?
We will never ask you for that kind of stuff as your financial institution. We'll ask you to verify certain pieces of information. But again, which is kind of in itself tricky, because you're like, how do I know?
That's exactly right.
So that is why too, we and organizations like ours every day are looking for what other technology is there that we can verify the identity of the people on the other side to protect you as a consumer.
That's exactly right. If you ever do get one of those phone calls, that's a real scenario that I just brought up. If you do ever get one of those phone calls and you feel weird about it, you can hang up and call the bank.
Yep.
And be like, hey, did you all just call me?
Yeah.
Is there something going on with my account? Right.
It's so sad we can't trust.
I know. Yeah. It's weird. People are weird. Avoid oversharing details on your social media sites. So you don't have to give away your whole life story on social media. So be careful, because there are people in the background that are looking to social engineer and to back into that information so that they can take over your life.
Well, and you can also, maybe you want to rethink your privacy settings.
Yes.
Do you really need everyone in the whole world to be able to find you? Do you need, so if you have a trusted group of people that you have friends with, then maybe you could share a little bit more than you normally would. But I don't even when we go out of town, I don't like to post that we're out of town until after we went out of town.
I was about to say that.
Because if people know that we're gone, they know we're traveling. So maybe we're spending our money so that we wouldn't notice if there's a missing transaction, or try to break into my house, because the alarm system is going to catch it real quick if you do that. But just that kind of stuff. You know what I mean? Yeah,
it gets deeper than I used to do one of these identity theft seminars with a risk management manager, and he was saying, imagine a scenario where you take your 16-year-old takes a picture for their birthday. They got a car for their birthday, and so they take a picture in front of in front of their car, right? They say, hey, it's my birthday, look what I got. And in the picture is a license plate. Right? So think about what you just gave somebody on the internet. You just gave them your date of birth, you just gave them your license plate number, and if they geotagged the photo, then you just gave them your address, right? And so they have everything they need. They have almost everything they need to open a bank account, right? Yeah. So it's that type of stuff you just need to be careful of when you're on social media.
So basically, after today's webinar, I'm closing all my social media accounts. I'm changing all my passwords. It really does make me pause and think, though, about how much do I really need some of the things that I need?
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think that the moral of the story here is, if you're going to still choose to access those programs, make sure that you're taking advantage of all of the security settings that are available to you, like the multi-factor authentication and things like that. And that you're changing your passwords regularly, and that you're watching the activity and checking your bank accounts regularly if you're going to. So it's, you might not be able to prevent everything, but you can certainly be proactive in trying to, or catching something as soon as it happens, so you can put a stop to it and dispute them.
Yeah, very good. You just put a bow on that whole section for me. The only thing that's okay. That's perfect. The only thing I would add is never let anybody outside of your employer remotely access your computer. Yep. This is another common scam we're starting to see, where people will, you will call a company because you think you're about to be charged for Norton antivirus or something you don't use. So you'll call the company, and somebody on the line will say, well, let me remotely access your computers so I can, take care of some things. Sometimes antivirus. They'll say, oh, you have a virus, and remove some viruses from your computer, right? Something like that. So they remotely access your computer. And now on their end, they can access your computer at any time, whether you're on it or not. And so they can get into things like your bank account. They can get into things like your photos.
You just made me think of something. You know, one thing that is often frowned upon is allowing your browser services to automatically store your passwords for that reason.
Yeah. Exactly.
So again, getting back to, but like, think about all the websites you go to that you have logins for, like if you didn't have those saved. And so again, having to make that decision of, if I'm going to keep that turned on, then those passwords need to be changed regularly.
Exactly.
And nowadays you need this really crazy, you know, algorithm of a password that you can't even remember it anymore.
There's no way you can remember it, but that's kind of the point.
Yeah, that's the point. So. And so I don't know, you just made me really think about, and what I do love is like some of the, like, I think Google Password Manager will even tell you, hey, you're using this password too frequently.
Yes.
So you can go in and change them. I think Apple passwords do something very similar as well. So I don't you've just left me with a lot of things to really think about when it comes to that.
Yeah, it's just the more you know, and to be aware of all these things.
Yeah.
The last thing I want to kind of talk about is what you should do if you or your loved one has been the victim of a scam. So we didn't want to leave you without a little bit of hope. There are things that you can do. So if you feel like you are in the middle of a scam right now, stop contact immediately. So if you're emailing, if you're texting, if you're on the phone, stop communication immediately. And contact your financial institution to report what's going on. If you want to take it a step further, you can also report it to Federal Trade Commission, or you can report it to law enforcement. And we'll leave a link to where you can report these things to the Federal Trade Commission.
And I would really highly encourage you to do that. I think sometimes it's easy for us to just assume that nothing is happening with that information.
Right.
But you never know. And, you know, with the new administration, there's a lot of things that are coming to the table. You never know when finally a hatchet might go down. They go, you know, let's take a look at all these. Or maybe we're able to enforce them and we can catch the bad guys.
Sure.
It's hard with the international stuff.
Yeah.
You know, and I don't know if they're catching people. We don't hear about that.
We don't.
Let's
hope
that they will. But like, again, if they don't, you don't know what you don't know. And just like with these agencies that are tasked with trying to catch them, the more information they have, maybe the more pieces of the puzzle they can get to try to help prevent it, or at least learn more about how these scams are happening so that we can create and continue to evolve the technology that we need to prevent them on those social media apps or on, you know, devices that we're using and things like that. So I say, if you've got the information, just take whatever time it takes, 5 minutes, 10 minutes to report it to those agencies, because maybe that's what we need. Maybe that's a missing link. Maybe enough people are going, oh, and just walking away from it and not providing, here's what happened, for them to collectively look at data, because we're too busy trying to keep up with
what's next, what's new.
Or just, you know, we're just stumbling through the fact that it happened, you know, to us.
And it's embarrassing. You know, it's embarrassing. People don't want to admit that they've been scammed. I forget what the percentage is. I meant to write it down, but a vast majority of people do not report when they've been scammed.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, let's report it. Let's just see what, you know, maybe we can help curve that together. You know, I don't know if there's enough people, but if you just said that statistic, then that tells me that if more people report those things, then that's more data than that we might be able to combat it.
Exactly.
So I'm a fan. Let's do it.
Let's do it. Let's file those reports.
Because I didn't file a report. Well, I'm trying to think of, did I file a report when I did when the fraud, the tax one happened to me years back? I don't even know that I knew how.
Yeah.
I was so much younger then and like just unaware of things in the world. So I don't even think that I did.
Sure. And I mean, a lot of times she's like, who do I even report to? Like,
so that's good to know that you can do that to the FTC.
You want to protect your credit, so you can freeze your credit. You can set up fraud alerts with Experian, Equifax, or TransUnion, and make sure you're monitoring your credit report regularly. You can use things like Credit Karma. A lot of financial institutions will have credit monitoring services attached to them. So,
usually some credit card companies will do that too.
That's
like if you are a consumer with their card, they provide it as a service for all things on your credit report. Yeah.
Just make sure there's nothing happening on there that's not you. just pay attention.
Yeah, it's good.
And seek support. So seek friends from us. Inform your family and friends. Spread awareness, like Kelly was just saying. Listen, the more people know about this stuff, not everybody's going to see this webinar, and not everybody's going to listen to the podcast. But if you're listening and there's some tips in here that maybe you want to share with a loved one, please share this stuff, because the more people are aware of what's going on, the less likely they are to fall for some of these scams.
Yeah.
And then consider identity theft recovery services for assistance. I will say, be very cautious, because there are scammers that are pretending to be identity theft recovery people. So make sure that it's a reputable and well-vetted source.
So you're saying do your homework.
Yes.
Always lead with caution. When in doubt, stop and verify, go straight to the source.
You got it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Check.
Ask questions.
Yeah.
Ask questions.
Don't just assume and trust.
Don't just assume anything. So this special episode was just meant to inform the public about what's going on. Again, we weren't able to get to everything, but I do encourage you to do your own research on some of this stuff and just see what's out there. There are countless reports and videos and things about the scams that are prevalent right now. So I do encourage you to check that stuff out. But with that, I think we've come to the end of this episode.
Yeah.
We thank you so much for tuning in. Anything you want to say to put a bow on everything?
Just be cautious. We appreciate you, and definitely go dive into some more resources. I love that there's other podcasters and other YouTubers out there that actually can dive in a little deeper to the things you shared today. I think you even shared someone with me earlier today. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go look for some of those folks who are trying to do good by shedding more of a light on how a lot of these scams are actually, how they're actually working. Sadly for the benefit of the scammer, but like how they're functioning. And then it helps, I think, to sometimes see some of that. So I like the visual aspect of it, because it can show you what they're doing. So that's what I want to do too, is go explore a little bit more of the ways these scams are actually happening, so that I can be more informed for myself and share that with others that are falling victim to those particular types of scams.
Yeah. Before the cameras were rolling, I was telling Kelly, one of my interests is checking out scam baiters. I'm not going to endorse any particular one, but I just go on YouTube and look for scam baiters and see what they do. I do not encourage you to do any of these things, the general public, because they have special insight and technology that they use to perform these. But if you're interested and you want to laugh or be more informed, just check out some of these scam baiters, because they like to mess with the scammers while also giving us education on what's going on.
Yeah. So. Well, Andre, thank you for bringing this to light for us and for taking the time to do a special. It's important enough that we needed to shine a spotlight on it, and hopefully it will be a benefit to others. And I appreciate you bringing it to the Envision world.
Well, thank you for joining me, Kelly.
Absolutely.
Thanks for having me. You all have a wonderful rest of your day, and we will see you next time on MoneyWise Wednesdays.
Bye.